is Montessa Young, University of Idaho, Washington County Extension Educator, and in this presentation we're going to talk about drip design. So after you have figured out your water source and your backflow prevention and your filtration and your pressure regulator, then you are ready for mainline tubing. So mainline tubing for drip is 1/2 inch polyethylene tubing. That's what transports water from your source to your plants and is the backbone of your drip irrigation system. One thing to watch out for is there are different manufacturers of drip tubing. Some of them have 1/2 inch diameter as measured from the outside of the tubing, and some have 1/2 inch diameter measured from the inside of the tubing. It's very difficult to tell this at the store, so you'll want to stick with the same manufacturer or bring a fitting that you can squeeze into the end of the piping to be sure it is the right size for your system. So this polyethylene tubing is hooked together with fittings. Typical, like your PVC fittings, is you can find elbows and T's and valves and hose starts and hose ends. I like the easy lock fittings better than the compression fittings. So the picture to the right is an easy lock fitting where you shove your polyethylene tubing on and then connect that, screw that fitting down over the top of the tubing. Drip tubing tends to move a lot in the heat and the cool of the day, and I find that these easy lock fittings hold on to the pipe a little bit better, where my compression fitting sometimes will pull loose. So let's talk about how you would design a drip irrigation system for a garden. So if you are growing a row crop, kind of like we see in this picture on the right hand side where the crops are grown in a straight row, then your best choice would be drip tape. It's very economical for long straight runs, and it has a nice straight even wetting pattern. This is what is used in commercial drip irrigation that you sometimes see in onions in Idaho, is drip tape. Some of the names of drip tape are Aquatrax, T-tape, or Irritech. It can be buried or left on the soil surface, depending on your application and how long you would like to keep it in. Drip tape can be one season, or it can last for many seasons. One thing is drip tape will not turn corners, so this really is meant just for row crops. And there's some other options if you have twisty, windy square beds. So here's an example of drip tape. It's hard to see in that left-hand side pictures, but the tape just has a small slit in it, and that's where the water comes out. If you look on the right-hand side, this is a recently turned on drip system on very dry soil. What you can see is it makes small circles, and when just in minutes those circles patch together and make a straight line of moisture. So if you have raised beds, then drip tape probably is not the best solution for you, but soaker drip line would be perfect. So this is in a 1/4 inch size, so it's half the size of your main line. It comes with small pre-installed emitters throughout the drip line. It's very flexible, it's very affordable, and when you have hard water, it lasts a lot longer than soaker hose does. And you'll have to watch that they actually do sell soaker hose in the 1/4 inch variety to use this drip line. And I've had the same issues with it as I do full-size soaker hose, is that with our hard water it tends to plug up. So the soaker drip line, you can weave in between your plants. You can fill the whole bed up with circles of soaker drip line. It's a really economical and easy way to get something up into a raised bed and to cover, especially for small plants. If you're planting lettuce or carrots or where the individual plants are small, soaker drip line is a great solution. So here's a picture of soaker drip line on the left. You can see it's in that 1/4 inch size. You actually connect it to your main line with just a little connector, and then you put an in plug in the other end. And on the right hand side is a closer up view of the little emitter. So there's just a little emitter there with a hole in it. You can get soaker drip line so those emitters are spaced differently apart. I believe this is 6-inch soaker drip line, so the emitters are every 6 inches. You can either get them closer or farther apart, depending on what application you're using them for. So what if you want to water individual plants? You could still use soaker drip line, Or you could use flag emitters. These are the drip irrigation little emitters that you put in. That's probably what you think of when you think of drip irrigation. They're very low cost. They're very fast to install. They come in different gallon per hour ratings. And they can also be used with 1/4-inch tubing. So you can put in a flag emitter and then take 1/4-inch tubing off of the flag emitter and move it closer to the plant, if your plant doesn't happen to be next to the main line. So for example, in this right-hand picture we see maybe a squash or a pumpkin field, and it's a little too far spaced apart for utilizing soak or drip line, but it would be perfect for drip emitters, those flag emitters, just because the plants have a single crown and are spaced fairly far apart. So here's an example of a flag emitter. The ones with little blue flags tend to be 2 gallon per hour emitters. And on the right hand side you can see how it shoots out a single stream of water. These might actually put out too much water if you have a very clayey soil that needs slow water infiltration, but you could always take it down to like a 1/2 gallon per hour emitter and it would put out a smaller stream. So let's say you want to water individual plants, such as roses, tomatoes, peppers. My favorite sprinkler is the Shrubbler. It was actually originally designed for shrubs. It puts out more water and a wider circumference than drip emitters, and it also has an adjustable circumference. So when your plants are small, you can have it cover a small circle, and as your plants grow larger, you can turn it up and have it cover a larger circle. So here's a picture of a Shrubbler in action. On the right bottom you can see its little small fingers of circle, and then on the left hand side how it can go to a big circle. So that can be used for individual plants very easily. You can put it on a small stake or even put it on a large stake depending on how close to your plant you need to be. So I added landscape borders in here. Of course, edible landscaping is the newest thing, and you could squeeze in some decorative cabbages and some pretty lettuce in between all those flowers if you wanted to. What I like to use for landscape borders is 1/2-inch emitter tubing, which is just a little bit like that 1/4-inch soaker tubing but in a larger size. It has pre-installed emitters in it. You can get them in different spacings, so 6-inch, 8-inch, 12 inches apart. You can get them for different flow rates depending if you have a water conservation bed. So maybe you are growing native perennials and you want maybe a shrub like sand cherry or Nankin cherry that doesn't take much water in that border. That 1/2-inch emitter tubing is a little more resilient than the 1/4-inch products too. So our landscape borders tend to be permanent installations. And I've had 1/2-inch emitter tubing last 10 years at my place without any holes or any problems, where the 1/4-inch tends to become disconnected or a little more fragile after 10 years. So it's a picture of the 1/2-inch emitter tubing. You can kind of see the little bumps in it or the extruded emitters in that tubing. So hillsides can be a problem for irrigation systems. But in drip irrigation they have PC emitters, or pressure compensating emitters. They're useful for terrain or really long rows where you're not getting as much pressure at the end of the row as you are at the beginning of the row. I actually like the PC emitters because they are closer to that mainline tubing, so they are very sturdy, and they also seem to not plug as easy as other emitters. So here's what the PC emitter looks like. As you can see, it hugs a little bit closer to the pipe than the flag emitters do. So how about watering trees, such as fruit trees? That 1/2-inch emitter tubing would work very good. You can make a circle around the tree. The pressure compensating emitters will work good. A lot of our orchards are on slopes. But a third option, a SuperNet PC sprayer, may be your best choice. It actually comes in multiple parts. It has a deflector on it, so when the tree is little you can have just a small spray hit the tree, and you can remove the deflector when the tree gets bigger, and then it'll water in a bigger pattern. Once again, these are also pressure compensating. So container gardening. Many of you are vegetable gardening in containers. The 1/4-inch soaker tubing works really well to wind around a pot once or twice. But they do make emitters just for containers. So they're basic drip emitters and they have a hole down stake. So let's say the picture to the right, if I was going to water that with drip irrigation, I'd run my 1/2-inch mainline tubing along the back or around all those pots, and then use a 1/4-inch connecting tube up to these little basic drip emitters and give each pot 2 or 3 emitters. And then you won't have to go with the hose to keep all those beautiful plants watered. So in designing your system, you first want to start with your landscape or garden plan drawn to scale with some measurements. You want to start from your water source, whether that's a hose bib or a pump or an irrigation system. I find it helpful to use colored pencils and color code or symbol for different emitters, sprinklers, and fittings. Like every 90-degree fitting is orange and every hose start is blue. And then it's very easy to look at your plan and count up how many you need of each thing. Then you can create your inventory list and then order online or go to the store to pick out your parts. I see a lot of people stand in front of the boxes at their local home improvement store and attempt to design their irrigation system there. And that makes for a lot of trips back to the store to get those missing parts. A good place to find example plans is at dripworks.com. category /cat_GOP. They have lots of examples of different plans using different products. I've also been very impressed with DripWorks customer service and their selection of parts. So if you are looking for an online place to order, I do recommend them. So here's an example from DripWorks of how they've designed a garden system. As you can see, they start with down in that right hand corner, their water source, the timer, a filter, a pressure regulator, a hose beginning off into your 1/2-inch emitter tubing, and you can see how that is the backbone, and they've added different products to that.